G'day guys, my name is Wildkard and welcome back. It's Tuesday, it's news day. Pretty big news came out last week. The All Blacks finally agreed to sell, got the Players Association approval to sell the team to Silver Lake Investments, an American investment firm, for $200 million. Now this is I've done a few videos over this. This deal has been talked about for over a year now. So last year I've come out, I had two videos looking at the valuation process and what I thought was going to happen with New Zealand Rugby. So I'll put the links down below if you want to go back and have a look at it. So this deal is, I think it's a disastrous deal for New Zealand Rugby, to be frank. This is, the New Zealand Rugby is in current financial situation because of its failing management. And what this does is essentially giving the failing management, bailing out the failing management, giving them another chance at continuing their failures, essentially. So the root of the problem hasn't been solved, which is the failing management. They're just giving more money to lose over the next few years, and we'll just see what happens. I don't see this going well for New Zealand Rugby. I think you're going to be forced to sell a bigger chunk in a few years, and a lot lower price, probably, potentially. So yeah, let's have a look at it, and I'll show you some evidence, and you can decide on this yourself, right? So first up, what's basically happening here is this deal is going to be basically first step of the deal is that New Zealand Rugby will be creating a new entity called NZR Commercial Co. So NZR Commercial Co will be looking after all revenue generating activities in New Zealand Rugby. Now, a lot of people have spoken about how the valuation of $3.5 billion is such a huge valuation. It's only a huge valuation because a lot of the revenue generating activities, a lot of the expenses under New Zealand Rugby is player development. It's grassroots rugby. It's the money they give to the minor 10 cups teams, the unions in the country. All of the money that New Zealand Rugby spent, which is part of their current financial report, which is why they're currently losing a lot of money, it's not going to be considered as revenue generating activities under this new established NZR Commercial Co, because grassroots rugby will not be considered revenue generating for the All Blacks performance. So that will be cut out of the revenue the books from New Zealand Commercial Co. I told you this is gonna happen in my other video because there's no way the Silver Lake will want to bear the cost of grassroots rugby that New Zealand Rugby pay to. So that'll be taken out of the books. And if you take out all the grassroots rugby that New Zealand Rugby actually spends, the valuation of 3.5 million of how much money they actually make, it's actually not that preposterous. It's completely within the range of what other sports teams are valued at. So like I have a video that looked at like Barcelona, looked at some of the American football teams, how those teams were valued, and compared based on their revenue and their valuation. It's pretty similar to what the All Blacks are getting at $3.5 billion, to be really frank. So it's not crazy amount of money that we're talking about, right? So once you've taken out the developmental costs, and then the other thing is here that with the now instead of just selling everything to Silver Lake, there will be a portion of it sold to Silver Lake initially, and then there will be another portion of it later in this year in 2022 to be offered to New Zealand institutions. So it will be kind of like IPO to New Zealand institutions, and this IPO will be ran by Silver Lake. So anything that doesn't sell, so if the New Zealand institutions don't buy all the shares, Silver Lake will pick them up. Is it going to be cheaper, or is it going to just be like a cheaper price? Not sure, but they're going to pick it up. So that's why Silver Lake will end up with 5.71 to 8.85% of the total ownership for New Zealand Rugby. Well, not New Zealand Rugby, New Zealand Commercial Co. And with representing around $2 to $3 million investment, right? And with that being said, there's another thing that they're going to do with the money. So this time, when they have the money, they're going to they're like, hey, this time we're going to invest. We're going to make sure that we turn that $200 to $300 million into more money, right? So they have as part of the deal, they will be working with Silver Lake to find global rugby opportunities, which they will invest in. Just listen to this, okay? Invest in global rugby and rugby-related technology businesses. Like what? They're gonna invest in streaming services? Rugby-related technology? Okay, so and then that profit will be split, okay? And so obviously, and then obviously the most important part and the biggest problem of this whole shenanigans is the failing management. The failing management gets to keep their jobs and gets to be in control of this new entity, New Zealand Rugby Commercial Co. So the failing management gets to keep their jobs and keep their hands. Yeah. So it makes no sense to me, and then I'll show you some numbers and you understand why, right? So this whole proposal, a lot of people are looking at this saying, hey, this is great, we're gonna take the money and invest, right? So just tell me one thing, right? In the end of 2018, after the Lions tour, the New Zealand Rugby had $103 million in the bank. Why didn't you invest that money? In fact, that's a rhetorical question. You did invest that money, and you lost. You lost every year since 2018. So 2019 you were down to 86 million, and by 2020 you are down to 51 million. So you halved your money since 2018, and then like you might say, oh, it's because of the pandemic. You're already losing money before the pandemic. You're in 2019. Just to make it bigger, in 2019, you've already lost money. So the people, and then you might say, oh, that's because whatever. That's not because they didn't have they didn't invest. Actually, they did invest, and they've lost a lot of money in their investments as well. So let's just look at the 2020 thing, right? Let's just look at the 2020 cash flow statement. Investment in associates, 3.5 million loss in 2020. So you're telling me the people lost 3.5 million last year through investments are going to take the $200 to $300 million handed to them and take that and magically make more money out of it? The same people that's losing money by investing the $100 or whatever million you had. You're telling me the same people are going to take that and make money. They're going to make money this time. That $103 million in 2018 doesn't count. This time we will make money. We will make money this time. The $3.5 million lost in 2020 doesn't count in investment. That doesn't count. We're going to do better this time. We're not going to lose money this time. Given $300 million. Does this make sense to any of you? Does this even remotely make sense to any of you? The people that's running the business into the ground, it's gonna get another $200 to $300 million and try to keep running it into the ground. What difference is gonna make if the people that's strategically involved in managing this whole business is still in charge? It's unbelievable. This is just unbelievable. And basically, you're going to run out of money in a few years. You're going to be forced to sell again. And guess what? Silver Lake are not going to lose money. Because remember, Silver Lake is only going to be taking money out of the revenue generating activities of New Zealand Rugby. So anything you put into grassroots, developmental, that's out. That's not going to be part of the costs. They're going to be taking that out of the financial books. They're going to be taking only the profit. Only the money you spend on the All Blacks players, everything else, and on the money you generate, everything else, all the other costs, you're going to have to bear yourself, New Zealand Rugby. Does this make any sense to does this deal look like good to any of you? Does this look like a good deal to any of you guys? So Silver Lake's still going to make their money. And only people who are gonna lose money is New Zealand Rugby. So yeah. And just by the way, if you wanted to invest in rugby-related technology businesses, you're a bit too late. You are a bit too late. Streaming services has been up and running for many years now. You're a bit late in that market, All Blacks. Anyway, let's go through some other news. So, there's a few injuries from the Six Nations. Let's go to Six Nations now. So, there has been some talks of the Springboks joining the Six Nations once again, with Italy underperforming. And this is currently not going to happen until at least 2025 because they have just committed to playing the Rugby Championship to 2025. But after that, the talks could reopen up again. So that's basically the news. At this stage, definitely no. But nobody knows what's going to happen. And one of the big pushers for, I guess, the Springboks joining the Six Nations is CVC, which is a investment firm basically that's put money into the Six Nations. And they have like 14.3%. So maybe they're pushing for a better competition, some more money, some more a more reputable team to replace Italy. Maybe that's the case, but the shareholders are not happy currently with some of the setups in the Six Nations. There's also a bit of law variation. So the first round of Super Rugby has been played. It was played with a slight law variation that is different from the rest of the world at the moment. So the red card is going to be 20 minutes, and this is not played anywhere around the world. Even in the club rugby in Europe, they're still playing full. If you get red carded, you're off. You can't replace. So Super Rugby still has a 20-minute replacement red card, and also Super Rugby has the golden point if in an event that the game is a draw. So there will be a 10-minute extra time where whichever team scores first point wins the match. So it was last year, modified from last year, where it's the first team to score a try to win the match. This is just the first team to score the point to win the match. So it's still pretty good. I do like the golden point. The 20-minute red card is good for me too, because I don't want a team to lose a match just because of a red card. Kind of like happened to Moana Stein on the weekend. He got a red card, and then the Bulls was very close, but eventually losing to the Sharks following the red card by Moana Stein, like 8 minutes into the first half or something. So they had to play with one player down for pretty much the entire game. And then we have New Zealand Rugby confirming that Moana Pasifika game against the Chiefs this weekend, which is the second game of this second round of Super Rugby Pacific. It's going to be postponed because whilst Moana Pasifika has been cleared of COVID, they basically said they don't have enough. Haven't had enough time to prepare. Everybody's been isolating and they haven't been training, so they haven't had enough time to prepare for Chiefs this weekend. Obviously, they don't want their debut to get out. They don't want the debut to be as good as possible. So this game will be postponed. And next up, the Fijian Drua has unveiled Na Bole as their war dance for the Super Rugby Pacific, and this war dance will currently only be performed in home venues. Home games. The game on the weekend was playing against Waratahs in Sydney, but as a result of the COVID, it was originally scheduled to be a home game. So I'm guessing that's why they did it for first opener. And I think going forward as well, any game that's supposed to be originally scheduled for a home game, they will perform it in the venue, even if it's played in Sydney. So that's really good to see. And then we have the Waratahs obviously winning their first game since 538 day against the Druas. The Druas did play really well, a little bit rusty. If tidy things up a little bit, could potentially put a few upsets out. The Waratahs did show huge improvements from what they did last year. Defense was tremendously better, and the four packer really stepped up this game. And despite the huge amount of pressure the Druas put on, the Waratahs were able to hold. Ardie Savea, so currently the New Zealand setup is a bit weird. They're basically involving in traveling between Queenstown to Dunedin to play some of the games, and basically it's a 4-hour drive, so it's an 8-hour trip to Dunedin from Queenstown, and some of the players are pretty much not happy about the setup. I think the Razor, the Crusaders coach, kind of put it the best. They're just taking this opportunity as a new experience, like a road trip or some like a bus trip, just to enjoy it, to get that burden of traveling 8 hours off their mind. I think it's really smart for Razor to motivate their players instead of being such a mental pang of being on a bus for so long, which is really smart for him. Next up, we have Ronan Kelleher, the hooker from Ireland, is out of Six Nations due to a shoulder injury. So this weekend he's not going to be playing, and Johnny Sexton is set to return for Ireland this weekend against Italy. Kind of like deja vu from last year, isn't it? He returned to play Italy after Ireland lost, after he was injured. But I'm hoping to not see him this weekend against Italy, to be frank. I'm hoping to see Joey Carberry getting some more time on the field. And just, really, there's no need for Johnny Sexton to be playing against Italy, to be honest. Just to reduce risk for Sexton, to preserve Sexton, and also to just an opportunity for Joey Carberry to do a bit more work on the field. Next up, Jonny Gray from Scotland, the second rower, is ruled out for the rest of the Six Nations for Scotland. So this is a huge loss for Scotland due to an ankle injury. Jonny Gray is one of the most impactful players for the Scottish team. One of the key cog of the wheel for the Scottish team. So this is a huge loss for Scotland. How this will definitely affect Scotland's chance at the championship without Jonny Gray. Next up, we have England confirming Courtney Lawes will be back for England Rugby. He suffered a concussion. That's why he wasn't able to play for the first 2 rounds. But he's cleared and he's now good to play against Wales this Saturday coming up. Next up, the COVID rules to be changed in England Rugby. Basically, they're no longer going to be taking COVID tests unless there's actually symptoms. There will be no more routine weekly testing. And essentially the pandemic is basically over for everyone. And so there's a bit more news a bit more news from Ibn Elizabeth. So he's actually set to return to South Africa after the end of this year. This will be his final season for the French team. He has been criticized a lot for being injured, for being playing for, not able to play for the clubs due to his commitments to the Springboks. And essentially, he's reached a deal with his club in Toulon that he's going to be, he's returning to South Africa due to his personal issues. And then again, he was injured a lot, and then he had one game basically returned, and he got injured as soon as he returned on the weekend against Pergamon, whatever his name is. Anyway, so Ibn Elizabeth is injured again, but he's set to finish his deal and returning to South Africa. So he's also set to join the Sharks when he returns to South Africa. He's not going to be playing for. I think he played for the Stormers beforehand, so he's gonna be making a bit of a change there as well for when he returns. And then so Beauden Barrett also had a bit of a concussion issue following the November internationals. Speaking of concussions, he was actually suffering some pretty bad concussion symptoms over the last few months. He's basically saying that he suffered it during the game against Ireland. Basically, every day he says that he wakes up with a small headache and I feel like he's hangover, which is not good. And he actually thought about retiring due to these concussion symptoms. So, yeah, hopefully Beauden's going to be okay. Hopefully he gets better. And I'm really sad to see someone like Beauden retiring at the tender age of 30. Like, he's literally in his prime. If he retires now before the World Cup, it's going to be really, really sad for New Zealand Rugby and a huge loss for New Zealand Rugby as well. The next up, so there will be 3 international side to join the Currie Cup, to play the Currie Cup in South Africa. And these are basically Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Georgian 15. So they're going to be playing the Currie Cup as preparation for their Rugby World Cup qualifying games coming up, as a preparation for their Rugby World Cup next year, not qualifying games, World Cup next year. So that's just something for them to be good. Just add a bit of extra spice into the Currie Cup for the South Africans. Next up, Curly Beale finalized his deal with Australian Rugby. He's set to return home at the end of this season. So at the end of this year, he's going to be available again to play for the Wallabies, and he'll be playing for the Waratahs next year for the Super Rugby. And he's taking a $500,000 wage cut. So he's trying to become one of the few people in the world to play 4 Rugby World Cups. And I don't know what to say, man. I feel like with the fullback position right now for the Wallabies, he's quite stacked. He might not even get a spot, So he could just be taking a $500,000 wage cut and not even get a run at the roll-up with the Wallabies. So yeah, I really thought, you know, Curly Beale towards the end of his career should really focus on the money instead of, yeah. Anyway, it's good to see him back. Anyway, I'm keen to see him play some Super Rugby again next year. So yeah. Finally, Felipe Contepomi is one of the players talking about taking over the Argentina national team as head coach. So basically, the head coach, what's his name? Mario Ledesma resigned last week due to obviously a poor season last year, being on the road all year was really tough for Argentina. So Ledesma, despite being the first coach to take Argentina beating the All Blacks, has decided to step down. And there's been a lot of talks, and there's a lot of talks about Felipe Contepomi, the former Argentina captain. I think he was number 10, and he was one of the he came third in one of the World Cups in 2007 or 2011. I talked 2007, I think it was. But yeah, he's a legend in the Argentina side, and there's been talks with another coach called Gonzalo Quesada, also could potentially, who's currently a manager for Stade France, could also be another guy in the discussions. So yeah, that's the news for this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts about the All Blacks drama. I think it's absolute stupidity. I think they need to get rid of the management first and foremost before talking about getting any more money handing any more money into the business. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I'll see you guys later this week for Six Nation previews. Cheers.